This was intended to be a group effort, but we're all adults here and time, it gets away from us. So, Josiah and Brandon, they weren't able to make it for this all or nothing, which is funny because half of the movies in this Ghostbusters Quadrilogy have already had current critiques released on the channel. However, the fact is, the Afterlife review was done in, well, so early, in fact, that I didn't know what I was doing. Like, it was accurate to how I felt at the time, but I hadn't quite gotten my rhythm down. And, I think it was even my second movie review, or something very early like that. And when it came to Frozen Empire, the fact is, I have an aversion to seeing movies in theaters, even though I actually like movie theaters. I just don't like the people that happen to join me in said movie theaters, because I tend to come away with a less than favorable opinion. So, after the open rolls, I will break down Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2, and Ghostbusters Afterlife, and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Ghostbusters, released in 1984, ran 1 hour 45 minutes. I really enjoy the subtlety of this classic library beginning, and the escalation is just top quality. Peter is such a not good guy. He is conducting a shocking experiment, but in reality, he is only shocking the men in the experiment and flirting with the girl. When the guy wants to leave, Peter says, "We are paying you," and the kids reply, says, "Keep the $5. I've had it." It's so memorable, this whole opening sequence. We meet Ray, who is such a genuine dude, and Egon, who has already gone to the library to check out this spook. Ray is so excited, and Peter is ultra skeptical. The sound effects are so helpful for setting the mood in the scene. I feel like Peter's attitude is very much related to his place on the team. If Egon is the brains and Ray is the heart, then Peter feels like he's the drive. He is a man of action. After Peter gets to the ghost and it comes at the team, they run and it feels so Scooby-Doo, but like in the best possible way. Back at the university, and the dean is kicking the team off campus. While Ray is upset, Peter tells him that Einstein did his best work as a patent clerk. Way to go, Peter. And then Ray, well, he is so distraught by this idea that Einstein did his best work as a patent clerk. Well, he takes a drink. This friendship, it feels so believable, and that is a very valuable part of how Peter convinces Ray to take out a third mortgage. Everybody has has 3 mortgages these days, Ray. Peter is sleazy when it comes to women, but with his friends, he has the best of intentions always in mind. Sometimes it feels like Egon and Peter are written in such a way to feel like they are the parents of Ray, who is full of like childlike wonder. We meet Dana Barrett and Louis Tully. I really enjoy the energy Louis brings, and when Dana gets in her apartment, her TV is playing a Ghostbusters commercial, which is a nice touch of making the boys feel legit. The subtlety of the paranormal activity is one of the best parts of the movie. In the early stages, it is easing us into this whole world and with things that are happening. I like that they're not going over the top. Ray bought a really busted car, an old hearse. Also, the guys have a new team member in the office, Janine. Big fan of her priceless sass. When everybody gets to know Janine, and Janine gets to know everybody, Egon tells her that he collects mold, spores, and funguses. It's a very classic moment. Dana has arrived at the Ghostbusters firehouse, and of course, Peter jumps right at the chance to help the lady. While the team is trying to figure out what is going on with Dana, Egon says she is telling the truth, or at least she believes she is. Peter, who is the most morally flexible on the team, insists that he'll take Miss Barrett back to her apartment and check her out. Although he meant to say check it out. Or maybe he didn't. So much tension between these two. Dana asks Peter if he knows how to use his equipment correctly, and he says that I think so. Which again, I think is another subtle dig at him. Janine is such money. When the boys get called out on a big job at a fancy hotel, they are so uptight that the man who called the Ghostbusters doesn't want anybody to know that they are here. Somehow the hotel owner thinks that they can keep the idea that the place is haunted away from both the staff and the guests. But anytime Peter is in a room, you'll know that he's there. Slimer is here, and we get just utter hilarious chaos. The ghost effects are the only part of the movie that seems to have aged poorly, but all the human work makes up for the not great ghost appearances. While the team is attempting to catch Slimer, so many fun and dumb things happen. Peter attempts to pull a tablecloth off of a table that is covered with flowers and things, and he's like, the flowers are still standing. Egon tells the guys not to cross the streams because he doesn't want his face burnt. After the team get Slimer, Peter tells the hotel manager, we came, we saw, we kicked its ass. When Peter says that it'll be $5,000, the hotel rep says, I won't pay. I really like how that they say, oh, that's okay, we'll just put him back where we got him. Such good stuff. We then enter the classic montage. Casey Kasem, Larry King, so much fun stuff, just showing how that the team is constantly working, constantly growing. At one point they get asked, how is Elvis? Have you seen him lately? It is such witty writing. Business is booming so much that the Ghostbusters are now hiring. Enter Ernie Hudson as Winston. He says that if there is a steady paycheck, I'll believe anything during the interview. It's very perfect. You're hired. Welcome aboard. Interestingly, Dana seems more open to Peter's advances now that he is prospering. It's funny how that works. Like Good Charlotte said, girls don't like boys, girls like cars and money. Other than the ghost looking not great, everything else is so clean. Oh, hey, Big Daddy Government is here thinking that they know best. The stupid government guy from the EPA is Walter Peck. He thinks that he can control the Ghostbusters by waving around his power, and Peter says to him to come back with a court order. While the EPA is trying to rule the people that understand what is happening, a hellhound comes to life and is on the hunt for a host. Yeah, I'm sure that the EPA really knows how to deal with this. Elsewhere, Louis Tully is hurt that Dana Barrett has a date on the same night that he is having a party that he had already invited her to attend. But Louis, a good guy, tells Dana to stop by after and, bring Peter along. Dana's mom calls and Dana tells her that she's going out with a Ghostbuster. When she gets off the phone, Dana gets taken by her chair, which was possessed by one of the demon dog things. Much like how Slimer wasn't top quality in appearance, these demon dog gargoyle hellhound things, they don't look good with age, but just like with Slimer, the actors make the scene rock. When Peter arrives at Dana's place for the date, a cop outside says an idiot brought a cougar to a party because that makes much more sense than this hellhound demon thing to anybody who, would think about it. Peter trying to talk to Dana and her saying there is no Dana, only Zool. It's just such a classic moment. And Peter keeps his cool. Zool gives us information about both the Keymaster, the Gatekeeper, Gozer, the Destroyer, all kinds of very important things for the close. And the information is just so cleanly given, it doesn't feel forced. We even learn that Gozer the Traveler can take different forms, which again is very important for the climax of this film. I really enjoy how well the movie has done at setting up the finish. Winston asks Ray if he believes in God, and then Ray says, "I've never met him," which really lightens the mood. And I find it refreshing when Winston tells Ray that he loves Jesus' style. Walter Peck has returned with his court order, and he has the containment unit shut down. What an idiot. This guy is just so self-righteous. How could Mr. EPA know more about Egon and Ray what they know about their own subject? It's just ridiculous. Zool is so pumped when all of the contained ghosts get released. We are on the road to the final encounter. The Keymaster and the Gatekeeper get together. Reginald Vell Johnson, who I recognize from Family Matters as a cop, and also from the movie Die Hard, playing a police officer, also plays a cop here when the boys get locked up. It's interesting. I was like, does this dude do any other roles, or is he just so good at playing a cop? I don't know. It's funny. Part of me wonders if Lewis would have run from the Keymaster Hellhound thing if he knew that it was going to take him to be with Dana, because it's clear that Lewis has a thing for her, right? Man, Walter Peck is such a liar, and Ray calls him dickless when they have a one-on-one or a group meeting with the mayor. And when Peck is fighting back and the mayor tells him, stop, Peter, and he wants to know what the truth is. And when Peter interjects and says, the truth is, this man has no dick. It's such crazy, fun things. The team get a police escort to Dana's apartment. Dr. Ray Stans, the heart of the Ghostbusters. This is awesome. It's just such a great 5 out of 5 stars movie. Ray thinks that remembering an advertisement from his childhood will save everybody from danger, because who could be scared of a big marshmallow man? But it's clear that the movie spent its budget on the finish, and Ray he's such a good dude. I really like when the villain Gozer asks Ray if he's a god, and he says no, and the whole team's like, if somebody asks you if you're God, you say yes. It's just great line after great line for such a great movie. And yeah, it's very enjoyable. On to Ghostbusters 2, which came out in 1989, ran 1 hour, 48 minutes. The story is just like the release of the movie. 5 years later, we begin with Dana, who is now a mother. Her baby's stroller rolls away from her as if this carriage has a mind of its own. I assume this occurred because the wheel of the baby carriage got some goo on it. The 5 years have not been kind to Ecto-1. The hearse has certainly had better days, but realistically, so has the team. Ray and Winston are working a birthday party. The business has closed, and then we hear, I'm tired of taking abuse from 9-year-olds. I really understand Winston hating this, and I really like how Ray is a forever optimist. Dana seeks help from Egon. His first question is, did anyone else see this happen? Egon always seeking the facts and wants to bring Ray into the investigation. Dana requests Peter not get involved. She knows he'd make it awkward. Speaking of Peter, he now has a TV show. Peter keeps breaking the fourth wall, looking at his audience while the guests are talking. The show is called The World of the Psychic. Very odd show for sure. After the show, Peter sees the mayor and his team walking by, and an assistant prevents Peter from speaking with his boss. Peter says, "I'm an old friend. I want to say hi," and give him a kiss. Here it is, the painting that creeped out little Oz. Dana is in an art restoration class, much like her neighbor, Lewis. Now her instructor, Janish, is clearly into her. Also, even though Egon promised Dana Peter wouldn't get involved, Ray gets forced to give up the information when Peter pulls Ray's ears. It was well done. At Dana's place, Peter, who is so pushy, says, "I know I'm just asking for the big hurt, but I thought I'd give us another shot." Which was, it's classic Peter. And, Dana does seem to be mildly amused. While Ray and Egon check on baby Oscar, Peter bugs Dana. She is so much better at keeping her cool than I'd have expected. But then again, this is not new to her. Peter calling Oscar ugly and smelly when Dana tells him that she's going to put him down, like for a nap. It's the just perfect amount of ludicrousness for the and just right on brand. Outside the apartment, the boys check out where the stroller got into contact with the goo and went haywire. That night, Egon uses a jackhammer to take up the blacktop. When cops pull over to talk to Egon, he can't talk his way out of this. Thankfully, Peter and Ray are very skilled at convincing the police that they are blue-collar boys just doing what the boss told them. Back to the creepy painting, it attacks Janish, and it proclaims, "Now is the season of evil." The man in the painting says, "Find me a child so I may live again." Back to the boys, Peter and Egon lower Ray into this river of goo below the street. The cops return, and they aren't falling for Peter's lines this time. While being questioned, Egon accidentally knocks out the power when they are working to get Ray up out of the hole that they had put in the ground. With the power out, Janish stops in to check on Dana, but he is really trying to get this painting boss of his a new host body in the form of Dana's baby, Oscar. When Dana closes her door, Janish's eyes begin to glow. So much creep going on here. This dude is not nearly as fun as Lewis was. And speaking of Lewis, he is not just an accountant like in the first movie, but this time he is the defense attorney for the team that got thrown in the slammer for digging up the sidewalk. If Lewis Tully got his own spinoff, I do believe I'd have watched, because he is just such a stand-up guy. His opening statement is pure gold. Lewis really shouldn't be as honest as he is. Peter says that was short and pointless when Lewis returns to the table. I get where he is coming from. Lewis was upfront about being one of the people possessed by the Hellhound Demon Dog things. So this isn't going to go well since the judge says he doesn't believe in ghosts. Exhibit F, which is the underground goo, is affected by negative energy, so every time the judge yells, it moves and grows. The judge, who doesn't believe in ghosts, wants the Ghostbusters to fight these two brothers that he had sent to the electric chair, who got, summoned by the goo maybe, or whatever, interested in coming to get their revenge. Because the judge was clear that he doesn't believe in ghosts, the team let him know, just tell the ghosts you don't believe in them. Before the team get to work, they make the judge dismiss the case. The courthouse ghost fight does such a good job of paying homage to the hotel Slimer ghost fight. Peter says, "We are the best. We are beautiful. We are the Ghostbusters." Such good writing. I like that Lewis has joined Janine in working in the firehouse. They also star as a married couple in a new commercial. More montage goodness. Man, that's something the world is lacking when it comes to cinema, is the good old montage. After that classic stuff, we get Ray and Egon yelling at the goo and showing Peter that it can make things dance. Like with the first film, this feels like it is smartly put in to help set up for the finish line. Thankfully, as an adult, the creepy painting stuff doesn't bother me anymore. When Peter is trying to lift Dana's spirits, he pretends he's going to paint a kitten in the Vigo, the Carpathian painting, and Janusz freaks out. Later that night, Dana's bathwater turns to the goo. This leads to her and baby Oscar going to Peter's place to feel safe. The next morning, all the boys go to the museum. They are going to talk to the painting. Vigo, who doesn't believe in death, or doesn't believe that death is final at least, but that it is simply a door for, I don't know, the creepy guy to return, was an interesting development, and helps clarify, I guess, him trying to put his mind that's in the painting in the baby. While Peter is making jokes, Ray begins to get lost in the eyes of the painting. Thankfully, Vigo doesn't take him over this time. Janine and Lewis watch Oscar while Dana and Peter go on a date. At the same time, Egon, Winston, and Ray head to the subway river of goo to investigate. Obviously, now is the time for Janusz to strike, since Dana's away, and this is when this really, everything kind of, I mean, it's not bad, but it just kind of falls off. Janusz is both a projection of his spirit, but he's also dressed in disguise while he's spirit projecting himself as a nanny with a baby buggy, which feels like big time overkill. Because, I mean, like, Dana already recognizes and knows him, and it basically, the team has already figured out Vigo is the big bad. They know where he's located. I like that Winston can turn the guy's science babble into easy to understand words. The mayor's assistant has the crew put in the nut house, and Peter, who is smart enough to get the gravity of the situation, says that he thinks his friends are crazy in an attempt to get himself set free. Dana is so good at the role of concerned mother. Overall, I do think that this movie is good, but it gets real bloated. We literally have the crew of the Titanic coming to the docks in New York, and Cheech Marin is playing one of the people who works in the area. Again, it's good. It gets a 4 out of 5, but if I had a chance to give this thing a little edit, I would trim it up. I see no reason not to stay focused on Vigo the Carpathian. I get the celebrities are fun, but was that cameo needed? Also, even though the movie set up that the goo can make a toaster dance, did we really need to spray the Statue of Liberty with the goo to make it walk the boys into the final fight? Again, that seems like a little bit of overkill. I do like Lewis suiting up when his friends are unavailable to help. Slimer driving a bus to take Lewis Tully to the museum is amusing, but again, it feels like just a touch too much. Sometimes less is more. Ray getting taken by Vigo when the team saves baby Oscar, while yes, was set up earlier, also feels a bit unnecessary when it comes to the bloat of it all. Was that only done to make a painting joke? I mean, I'm glad Ray is happy to be free from Vigo, but so much of the final act feels forced and not nearly as natural as the original movie felt. When Ray thought of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, I believed, whereas so much of the ending of this film just feels out of place. Not big time wrong, but just too much. I feel like a little restraint could have gone a long way in getting this to a 5 out of 5, but 4 out of 5 still isn't bad. And many have said that the 2016 movie deserves no stars. And for a long time, I avoided it because I didn't feel like it looked appealing. But next Monday, I will release a Ghostbusters Answer the Call catch-up video. And after the ad read, we will continue down with this quadrilogy of 4 films in the actual Ghostbusters universe, because the 2016 movie was outside of this world. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular here at Mr. Super Oz, I just want to thank you for tuning in to the channel. It exists because I, Oz, from the channel Mr. Super Oz, I wrote a 68-page graphic novel called Everlasting Survivors. Volume 1 is called All Day Long. If you follow the link in the description of this video, you can get yourself hats, shirts, posters, all kinds of fun things. But most importantly, you can get the story itself. And the more people that pick up the story, the greater the chances are that there can be continued adventures with these heroes. If you could, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment, enjoy. Ghostbusters Afterlife, released in 2021, ran 1 hour and 53 minutes. From just the opening sound effects, I already feel like we are back in that classic world of Ghostbusters. The scene of the old man Egon and his ghost trap is such good stuff. His plan fails, so he hides the ghost trap in the floorboard of his living room near his favorite chair. Before he gets got, cut to the Spangler family, where they are on hard times. Callie, the daughter of Egon, is cutting her son's hair while Phoebe is attempting to acquire the neighbor's electricity. I say acquire because, stealing is a no-no. The landlord arrives and he is willing to wait until they all leave before he changes the locks. The family has no choice. Callie must take her kids to Summerville, Oklahoma, a fictional town. I looked it up just for curiosity's sake. Trevor, the son, says he can't get a single bar on his phone while he's searching for service when they enter Summerville. And his mom responds with, "They better have a bar." Egon, who spray painted Revelation 6:12 out front of what the town calls the dirt farm, makes this driveway very ominous. When they get to the front door, the mom instructs Phoebe to be a dear and break into your grandfather's house. It is early, but the writer has really got the voice of the mother especially. Phoebe is played by the actress who is also a genius named Paige in the show Young Sheldon. This is interesting because there is another character from Young Sheldon who is in a modern Ghostbusters story. Come back next week to hear all about Ghostbusters 2016. Annie Potts, who plays Meemaw in Young Sheldon, was Janine in the original franchise. Not long after the family enters the house, they all three hide under the dining room table to avoid an earthquake, or what they perceive to be an earthquake anyway. Hey, I was just talking about her, and here she is. Janine stops in. She stayed in touch with Egon and is basically the executor of his estate. This rundown home and bills are unfortunately all that Callie, the daughter of Egon, gets from her father, and it's hard to watch, given that to us, the viewer, Egon was always such a good guy, but to Callie, he was an unpresent father. Trevor is very disappointed that they are staying here in, Nowheresville. Phoebe attempts to make the best of it when she finds her grandfather's PKE meter. When the family leaves the house to go out and explore Summerville, Trevor changes his perspective on the town as soon as he sees Lucky, and it it's amusing. One girl can change everything. Trevor lies to Lucky and says that he's 17 when in reality he's 15. But, who can't relate to that? Wanting to be an adult is possibly one of the biggest mistakes kids often make. Back home, and a chess set falls over, so Phoebe picks it up. This is subtle, much like the original movie. We see Trevor checking out a barn outside, and it is, it's not yet revealed, but it's clear that Ecto-1 is going to be in that barn. The next morning, one of the chess pieces that Phoebe had picked up has been moved, and in response, she moves a piece of her own from the other side. Callie is taking her kids to summer school. I'm not really certain as to why Phoebe needs to go, other than maybe just something to do. At the school, we meet Gary Gruberson, and he clearly is into Callie. Since this is summer school, Mr. Gruberson is just mailing it in. He rolls one of the old CRT TVs into the room and puts on Cujo while he steps away and researches the seismic activity in the area. With the teacher away, a fellow student pops a microphone in Phoebe's face and begins narrating. He tells her his name is Podcast because of his podcast. Another earthquake, this time during school. This causes Phoebe to go looking for the teacher. Phoebe is shocked to figure out that Gary is actually smart, and he is impressed with her intellect also. I really like how Gary treats Phoebe as if she is just a good, intelligent person and not a little kid. The explanation of why none of the shaking makes sense is very well done by Gary, or Paul Rudd specifically. Basically nothing fits. Volcanic, not tectonic. It has been established since early on that Phoebe attempts to relate to people with very dry jokes, and Podcast is the first person to not just laugh, but get her sense of humor. Oddly enough, even though Phoebe has been playing chess with her dead grandfather, she isn't yet convinced that ghosts are even real. Podcast wants to convince her they are. Podcast feels like the modernized version of Ray, the new heart of this film, because he's a true believer. The kids go inside this crazy cave mine place. Podcast has brought Phoebe here to see these cool ruins that look suspiciously like Dana Barrett's old apartment, or the rooftop where Gozer the Traveler came back. Podcast records Phoebe as she walks back home in case that her body gets pulled apart because everybody thinks that the dirt farm is abnormal. Nothing crazy happens, obviously. The only odd thing is playing chess with a ghost, and she was already doing that. Trevor is still working on Ecto-1 when Phoebe uses her grandfather's PK meter to find the ghost trap that he left in the floor. The audio selection is just top-notch. It keeps making me feel like this is the true successor to those originals that came in 84 and 89. The next day at school, Podcast tries to get Phoebe Podcast and Phoebe attempt to open the ghost trap when Mr. Gruberson pops in, and he thinks the kids have a replica of a ghost trap, but when they are confused by him thinking they have a replica, he realizes they don't even know about the Ghostbusters, and so he plays news footage on YouTube to catch them up on what happened in the 80s. After class, the kids and Gary open the trap, and in doing so, they break a bunch of windows nearby. Even Gary's own car window gets busted. After this not so smart move from the teacher, he takes Phoebe home and Podcast rides along. When they get to the house, Callie and Mr. Gruberson are so awkward together, but Gary gets the date that I'm sure this was all built for. Since the teacher got the kids interested in ghosts, Podcast reads one of Egon's books about the gatekeeper and the keymaster and Gozer and all that stuff. This feels tailor-made for someone who never watched or has forgotten parts of 1984. Lucky invited Trevor to go up the mountain with her and her friends, where, wouldn't you know it, a ghost interrupts them flirting with each other. Ghost Egon helps his granddaughter work on a proton pack, and it's very cool. Callie gives her daughter the heads up that she and Gary are going on a date, but Phoebe doesn't seem to care about that since she and Podcast get to practice with the proton pack that Phoebe got in operational order. While they shoot stuff, Phoebe tells Podcast she sort of met her grandfather last night. After this, the kids face off against a blue ghost they call a muncher, like a modernized Slimer ghost in style. The duo try to trap the ghost, but no such luck. That is until Trevor picks up his sister in Podcast while he is taking Ecto-1 on a joyride. The kids unintentionally interrupt Callie and Gary, Mr. Gruberson's date while working to capture the muncher. They get it, but not before causing a ton of destruction. The trio of kids are in lockup after all the damage they have caused. Trevor is blown away that Lucky is here, and it turns out that her dad is the top cop in the town. When Phoebe gets her one phone call, she calls the number from the classic Ghostbusters commercial, and Ray answers and says Ray's a cult, which is his bookstore and thing that we already know that he had in Ghostbusters 2. Phoebe says she's calling about Egon, and Ray says that he can rot in hell. It is revealed that Egon took off with Ecto-1, the proton packs, all the jumpsuits, everything of the teams because they wouldn't listen to him, and that's what ended up bringing Egon to Summersville. Unfortunately, or in some cases fortunately, we now know that Egon was right all along, even though his team wouldn't listen. Callie is still mad at her father for leaving, even though we know he was trying to save the world. She just wanted her father, which is understandable. This leads to a very tense moment when Phoebe points the wand, if you will, of the proton pack at Lucky's dad. With the date for Callie and Gary Gruberson ending so dramatically, Gary stops at a Walmart to get some ice cream, and since he is getting Baskin-Robbins ice cream, I can't help but think of Scott Lang from Ant-Man working at the Baskin-Robbins. This is where we see the mini Stay Puft marshmallow creatures for the first time, and they love destroying one another. Gary gets taken over by a hellhound, and so of course Callie will be possessed by a demon dog also. All the young heroes go to the mountaintop. Podcast, Phoebe, Trevor, Lucky all attempt to figure out what is causing the earthquakes, and it turns out it was an elaborate system devised by Egon to keep Gozer locked away. Phoebe also accidentally let slip that her brother had lied about his age to Lucky and that he's only 15. Phoebe realizes that her grandfather sacrificed everything to protect his family, and he is good. I just look forward to Callie understanding once she gets unpossessed or no longer, taken over. Before Callie even gets taken over, she finds Egon's love letter to her. He kept track of her even though he was away and tried to watch out for her, so that's good. When the kids come home, it is too late. Callie says there is no mom, only Zool. What a callback. Of course, Gary, the now Keymaster, breaks Egon's containment plan. Gary and Callie being taken like Dana and Lewis makes me wonder if the Keymaster and Gatekeeper have a desire for those they possess to have a built-in attraction, or if it's just completely accidental. If not for the fact that I had already seen this movie, there's a part of me that thinks maybe the originals might not even appear outside of that small cameo where Ray answered the phone. But everything is leading to the big finish, and I do know what is to come. Podcast is smart and frees Muncher out of the ghost trap with the hopes that the Muncher will get to chewing through the cage where all of the Ghostbusters equipment is locked away in the police station. Once the kids get the ghost fighting stuff, it is time to race to the Ghost Mountain. When they face off with Gozer, Phoebe is asked if she is ready to die, and her response is golden. She's like, I'm only 12. This is like the 1984 movie, but not identical. The kids free Callie only for the Hellhound to get lucky. Thankfully, now that Gozer is free, the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper don't need to fool around, because that would have been bad for the teacher and Lucky. As the heroes race home, Callie gets caught up on everything that has happened, and it is revealed that Egon was looking out for everyone. It's such a spectacular finish, and just when it seems all hope is lost, Peter, Ray, Winston, they show up and help the new kids on the farm. This leads to Ghost Egon helping guide the hand of his granddaughter to stop Gozer. So 6 out of 5 stars. Spectacular. I feel like I am incapable of explaining just how well executed this all was. Peter tells the Ghost Egon he thought that he'd show up, and Ray apologizes for not believing in his friend. Callie doesn't really say it, but you can just see in her eyes that she is at peace, knowing that, this was what she needed. Ray is subscribed to podcast. I believe this kid, podcast, is the new heart, like Ray was the original heart of the Ghostbusters. Now that Gozer is defeated, Egon moves on. Winston buys the firehouse, and the family leaves Somerville to take the family business back home. Sigourney Weaver returns as Dana in the post-credit scene with a callback to the original movie. This time, she is the one playing with the shock machine, and she shocks Peter. So that was top-notch stuff. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, released in 2024, ran 1 hour and 55 minutes. I watched it in theaters upon its release, and I had issues, but I rewatched it for this particular review. Took multiple pages worth of notes. Thought that I had everything recorded nice and clean and clear, so I tossed the notes. Turns out there was a glitch in the Matrix, and the audio didn't record properly, so here I am trying to do it the best of my ability off the top of my head without the said notes. I will say this, we begin in 1904, 1908. We begin a long time ago after they pop up the words to a Robert Frost poem, and so in the 1900s, we meet some adventurers. I think they called them an adventurer society, who all got frozen, and the fire department don't know what to do about it or how to fix the problem. We then come to the present day, and the Ghostbusters are attempting to get an eel that they call a sewer dragon, a ghost eel looking thing they call a sewer dragon. And while Phoebe and Trevor are unable to capture it, Callie uses a new tool, a ghost trap drone, and Gary Gruberson, he dodges somebody with the Ecto-1 and slams into a bunch of scooter things from the city. And the new mayor, or I don't know about if he's new, but he's new to us mayor, Walter Peck, formerly from the EPA, loves this. He has always been against the Ghostbusters, and thus he uses this negative publicity or development to bench Phoebe because she's underage. And Trevor talks about how he doesn't get paid for this, which is entertaining. Obviously Phoebe's not happy about what's up, and she goes to talk to Ray, and we see that Podcast is filming a YouTube show, or producing it at least, for Ray. And while at Ray's occult bookstore, Nadim, Kunil Nanjani or whatever, comes in trying to sell some of his grandmother's old things. And by doing so, Ray notices that there's an orb with ancient writing. So Nadim, who's, kind of a lazy, almost a manipulator, if you will, tries to get more money for this thing that Ray's now interested in. And so with that, we also see the mini Stay Puffs that are with Podcast and Phoebe are taken aback by what the orb is possessed with. Ray also takes the kids, Phoebe and Podcast, to a library to meet a friend of his who's an expert on dead languages named Hubert, played by Patton Oswalt. And Podcast actually begins to display a little more awkwardness than Phoebe here in this moment, whereas in the prior film, Phoebe was definitely the more, don't get me wrong, they were both awkward, but he was the more with it than the two, I feel like, to some degree. And we see that Winston is running the Paranormal Research Center, basically a heightened version of what the Ghostbusters are, like a more fancy version, if you will. And he's got a team under him. Lars, Lucky's working there. Ray works with them as well. So many things happen. Important is the important thing. Like Phoebe makes friends with a ghost. Once again, we play chess with the dead. And Phoebe's friend Melody is one of the most human-looking ghosts throughout. The biggest thing that she has different about her is that constant flames are emitting from her because she lost her whole family on fire and she died before, or I don't know, they used some excuse for her to keep her appearance, basically, which was fine, her general appearance. And there's a point where I wonder if Melody is a friend or a foe when so the team gets called out on a mission and Phoebe is unhappy to be left behind. Then they get a new call, so Phoebe and Podcast go to bust a ghost, and it turns out it's Melody. So Phoebe gets locked up, but Melody doesn't get locked up. She hesitates to take out the ghost. She ends up damaging things and goes back to the firehouse, and when Melody comes, she is pretending as though she's giving Phoebe a hard time, which she is, but she's more interested in the containment unit and freeing the ghost, it seems. Like I said, so many things go down. Wish that I hadn't have tossed my notes. I just can't trust technology. But in the end, it is a good 4 out of 5. The Firemaster setup that Nadim is a key to stopping Goraka, the big bad trapped inside the orb. Melody actually turns on Goraka after Goraka manipulates Phoebe, who Melody had convinced to go on a spirit walk, so join her in the other side. And so Melody and Nadim work together to help the Ghostbusters stop the big bad. Like I said, it's a good 4 out of 5 film. I feel like with as much money as Frozen Empire made, there will certainly at least attempt to be more movies made within this universe, because I don't know if Nadim or Hubert, even other characters like Winston, I could see him retiring. There was a point where I thought that he was channeling his inner Danny Glover when he said that things as though he's too old for this. But I'm certain they'll make more. I don't know who will come back. Most likely Trevor, Phoebe, Podcast, those type of characters. But yeah, it was good. It was 4 out of 5. And come back Monday for a catch-up on the 2016 Ghostbusters. But join us this Friday. I say us because the hope is that Brandon and Josiah can make it while we talk about the real Ghostbusters, the animated series.